Arteta! What a strike! What a screamer! Zola! And a fantastic goal! Arsenal back in it! Here's Lipa, lines it up, finds the net. Arsenal in front.
And now we get to go back in time the way we always hoped. It's UEFA taking us back to the bonny years of 2020. This is the Arsenal Vision post-match podcast. My name's Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. You're actually going to be hearing me say something different over the next few weeks. You're going to hear me say, welcome to Euro Daily with Phil Costa, because that is what this is going to be. This is sort of the bridge to get you there, to take you back in time. That's right, to the heady years, the time that we all wanted to go revisit, 2020. Just think back, locked in our homes, dealing with a pandemic, populists cropping up all over the world, all kinds of fun things happening that we wanted to relive, right? So UEFA is taking us back there. Instead of calling it Euro 2021, they're calling it Euro 2020, and so we are going to call it that with them. And we are going to do, if you can believe it, an episode pretty much every single day of the tournament during the week. What we'll do on the weekends is TBD, which means to be determined based on whether my wife will watch my children and we can make it happen. But yeah, we're gonna give you a lot of Euros content to get you through this. And meanwhile, on this main feed here and over on Patreon, you'll still be hearing about Arsenal. Should Arsenal wake up and decide to do anything, there will still be Arsenal Vision podcast. So a lot of stuff to get you through the doldrums of the summer as Arsenal hem and haw and decide how much Ruben Neves is worth. But I do want to introduce Phil Costa, and you should be aware of him. If you are not aware of him, well, first things first, get following. You can find him on Twitter at _Phil Costa. Hello, Phil.
Hello, nice to be here. I'm actually quite excited now. You've put me in the mood already with that little intro, so I'm ready. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing that gets everybody fired up, it's the idea of getting in the Wayback Machine and going back to 2020. I do want to give your CV here. You're the content editor for One Football and do some writing and social media for Scouted Football, two excellent sources for all things football. So obviously very knowledgeable. Happy to have you here. My understanding that you do some work with Lewis Ambrose as well, who we're all familiar with, and hopefully will join us for one or two of these along the way.
Yes, we're teammates in here in Berlin in One Football. So I had the pleasure of knowing him for 3.5 years now, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I can see how knowing anybody for 3.5 years feels crazy to me, because at that point, usually they are telling me to get stuffed and off they go. But real quick, in terms of your loyalty, you are in Berlin, Germany. Who are you supporting in this tournament?
Well, I mean, actually, for me, international football is a very sort of broad subject for me, because I mean, my family history is from Cyprus. But I mean, my affiliation is towards England, but I've never felt, so passionate about them, for example. But, the last World Cup and this squad is very likable, quite young and exciting. So, I'm feeling it a little bit more to be proud of this team and these players. But I wouldn't say I'm a die-hard English supporter, but I mean, for sure, my allegiances will be with England, and who knows, maybe it can finally come home after all of these years.
Yeah, I don't know if you know, but over here on this side of the pond, it came home. The CONCACAF Nations League. I think there are 2 games in it. I'm not totally sure. There were a lot of bottles thrown. There were a lot of penalties taken. One missed. I mean, absolute madness in CONCACAF. Pure inject it into my veins CONCACAF. So it came home here, and all I can say is that I hope for you it gets to come home. Do you find any cognitive dissonance? Well, first let's out you for your club affiliation. Are you prepared to nail your colors to the mast there?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I've made no secret of my affiliation to Arsenal.
Yep.
So
just getting that out there so people are okay with you being the flag bearer for this series as we go forward. And I do need to ask you what I ask any England supporter / Arsenal supporter, which is, how do you handle the Harry Kane situation?
I mean, I have two Phils, 2 editions of Phil. One is my work Phil, and that's when I have to be nice about him and write nice things and and try not to make fun of how he speaks or what he sounds like. And then there's the Arsenal Phil, which really hates everything about Harry Kane. So
okay, good.
It's become easier to differentiate the two, but I'm committed to both sides.
Okay, well, I think that's fair. The one thing that I'm really looking forward to about this series is that, candidly, I haven't been much of an international football person. I do love watching the Euros and the World Cup, but I find qualifiers tedious. I'm annoyed when Arsenal have to go away so that we can have international breaks and all our players come back crocked. But I am looking forward to this tournament. I'm looking forward to learning what I need to know about this tournament from you as we go forward. I'm going to take a quick pause here to just let everybody know Tuesday we are going to officially announce this long-teased event in Las Vegas. But if you can make it to Las Vegas August 19 to 22nd at the Wynn, there's a brand new multi-million-dollar studio that's there that we're going to be using. There's going to be watch parties in the nightclubs for the games, although there'll be day clubs because it'll be daytime games, because it'll be the second week of the season. We're sort of doing it as a season launch. The fixtures will be released in 7 days, so we'll actually know which games we'll be viewing, which will be cool. There'll be some, I'm going to say the word, influencers there, but some fun people. A lot of good stuff going on. And hopefully, if you can make it out, you will. There'll be a promo code for rooms if you want to stay at the Wynn, and some free drinks to go around and things like that. So hope to see everybody there, and we'll have the website up soon in the announcement, and should just be a really good time. So hopefully people come. And Phil, I'm guessing that from Berlin it will not be possible for you, but more than welcome to come. You can have the King Emperor suite at the Wynn if you can make it.
Is that on record?
No, I'm just assuming you can't make it, so I'm writing checks my body can't cash. My mouth is writing checks.
I've been to Vegas and to the Wynn, actually, so there you go.
What'd you think of it?
It was different. It was. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it before, and it was about 50 degrees because we went in July, so
yeah.
Not fun, but we were kind of going through all the hotels with air conditioning. Why do you need to go outside?
You don't need to. Although the pool parties will tempt you, depending on what age you are and what tolerance level you have for turning up parties to 11. Look, we are 7 minutes in of Waffle. Waffle is not my strong suit, as you know. I think Andrew Arsblog does it quite brilliantly. I am still learning, but I feel that I've done it with aplomb here. So I'm going to move on. Let's get started. So again, starting Friday, you'll get Euros Daily with Phil Costa. It'll show up on your regular feed. I hope to have new music. I will try to come up with a new intro and outro where I say different stuff and try to act like a different person, and it'll just generally feel very professional and slick, and you will love it, and it'll be different from everything you're used to. So let's do an overview as a recap. 5 years ago, there was a Euros. Fans were there. The days before we knew what a pandemic was, other than if you had watched, the movies about it. And Portugal, of all things, hoisted the trophy. Cristiano Ronaldo getting the chance to make himself known to world football, which was really nice to see. Do you want to just kind of recap for us where we've been since then, not as a world, but as a footballing world, in the time since Portugal hoisted the trophy 5 years ago?
I mean, well, you say that, but Cristiano Ronaldo was actually injured in the final.
Yeah.
And he had to go off in tears, and he was basically the sort of pseudo manager on the touchline, doing all the Matthew Flamini tribute with the pointing and shouting.
Combination Matthew Flamini and John Terry full kit wanker lifting the trophy at the end.
Yeah. Yes. And actually the goal itself, the winning goal itself, was not so flattering for Arsenal fans, because Adair kind of made a mockery of Laurent Koscielny in the lead up to the goal. So we didn't really like that moment. But yes, 5 years is actually quite mad to think about it being so long ago. I mean, we've had a World Cup in between as well. So a really good World Cup, actually, because who doesn't love the World Cup?
Yeah, no. We'll find out when it's played in the middle of the football season, the league season.
It's going to test our patience for sure. But Euro 2016 was great because we had like Belgium somehow finding themselves in the semi-finals and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I mean, in between we've had a bit of, especially in the last kind of 18 months, it's been very trying for everybody, and football's no different. We've had to watch from afar. We've had to see clubs with finances decimated and players running their contracts down. So the whole landscape's kind of changed a bit. But this summer, you kind of get a feeling that things are slowly edging back to normal, and hopefully with fans back in the grounds and hopefully able to enjoy themselves sensibly, this can kind of be a nice sort of event to bring everybody together.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And so just one thing before we start going group by group, to what extent are you concerned about the way this sort of 18 months of football, or I guess you could even say a year of football in terms of the fixture congestion, is going to have a bearing on the freshness of the players, the ability for them to hold up, the maybe even intensity and level of the competition in terms of just what these players have left? I mean, pretty much, especially players who were part of Project Restart in England, this has just been nonstop football jammed in every possible day available for 12 straight months. So do you think that this is going to be a more challenging tournament, especially for players who were in the Premier League because of the way the fixtures really piled up over the last year?
I mean, I think it would be impossible for it not to be. As you said, players have essentially been run into the ground. And it's not just injuries they're having to deal with. It's the kind of mental side, especially with a lot of teams being in like sort of biosecure bubbles. Some have been away from families, and it's difficult to play every 3 days, every week, for the last sort of year, like you said, and to be constantly fresh, constantly, sharp. And it's tough, especially now we've even seen, some teams affected by COVID, and that's affected their preparations. And we've seen under 21 sides drafted in for friendlies and into the squad. So, even though we're kind of seeing the light at the end of the tunnel for this pandemic, it's still very much a factor to consider when you're considering all the preparations here. So, it's been rough. And as you said, I would not be surprised if even in the group stages there were some low scoring games, and sort of the intensity that we're used to might not be there because, some players, especially if they went far in the Europa League or the Champions League, will have played about 70 games, 80 games, which is just absurd, really. No athlete should be, put through that much. But here we are, and they have been, and it's a chance to represent your country, but it's kind of a balancing act for everybody, So we'll see. But for sure, I think we're going to see some low scoring games and a slower tempo than we're used to.
Yeah. So one other thing, and I don't want to make this a political thing. It's more of just a reality logistically. Are you surprised that UEFA decided to stick with the plan for hosting this across Europe, given the various levels of vaccination access, continuing pandemic-related issues? I mean, obviously some countries doing better than others. The fact that you're going to want to have fans in the ground and they may want to travel between countries, which is now harder than ever because the restrictions and regulations are different everywhere. I mean, would you have preferred to see them try to localize it more someplace where it's easier, or would that have punished fans because those countries may not be letting those fans in? I mean, how do you feel? Did they really have a choice other than to just stick with what the plan was originally?
I mean, it's always difficult because they have sort of marketing deals and TV deals and advertising deals to consider as well. I mean, at some point in around February, March, I thought that they would eventually just scrap everything and put it all in England, or in the UK at least. Because after a terrible third wave around Christmas, they got their vaccine situation together quite quickly in January, and the progress there was very quick. And I considered England, there's a lot of stadiums. They're more than comfortable to be able to host that many people in terms of infrastructure, hotels, Airbnbs, that kind of thing. The football stadiums are, all top notch, apart from Old Trafford and their leaky roof. So I honestly believe that they would have maybe taken the decision to do it in the UK, but they stuck with their guns, and maybe they thought, okay, we've got a little bit of time for other countries to catch up. And we'll just have to wait and see, I guess. I mean, it's going to be impossible to try and keep, everybody COVID free, no matter how the vaccine situation is in each country. But, they've made the decision now, and we have to see what happens. But I think largely now, a lot of countries are slowly vaccinating people, so we just have to hope that they don't overcrowd themselves to give themselves more problems.
Yeah. Well, okay. Look, there's nothing we can do about that. I'm certainly not going to be making it to the games. I guess I should ask you, as part of your job covering this, do you have any plans to attend any of the fixtures?
I would love it, but unfortunately not. I'm going to be working here from Berlin in our sweltering newsroom, which is always a nice environment to be in. But I think even if we had the opportunity to go, it's always difficult because my company is an app, so we don't always get press accreditation. So that's always been difficult. But no, I'll be watching on TV like the rest.
Whenever I hear newsroom, I always think of like the old Superman movie, the Daily Planet, I think it was called, and the guys with the hats with the little piece of paper in it, that says press. Yeah. And you're running around. You got like a cigar. Everybody's smoking cigars at their desk. I got a deadline. Somebody give me information. Is it like that or not? Not really. No.
I'm going to crack this story wide open.
That's it. Yeah, okay, super.
No. I mean, it's just a bunch of spamming on Macs and some TV in the background. Unfortunately, not as glamorous.
Out of curiosity, is there a guy who wears glasses who, if he were to take them off, might look exactly like Superman?
No, unfortunately not.
That's a shame. All right. Well, just if a helicopter starts falling off the roof, I guess you'll find out. Okay, here we go. Enough of the nonsense. We're into the groups. We're going to start with, get this, group. Can you guess? Group A. We're starting with Group A. It's the first letter of the alphabet. I know this because I have a 5-year-old. Who is involved in Group A? Italy, Switzerland, Turkey, and Wales. Italy, Switzerland, Turkey, and Wales. 2 of my favorite foods in that group. I'm kidding. I have never eaten a Switzerland. Okay, so, gosh, my jokes are terrible. I am the ultimate dad joke guy. What is the big storyline from Group A? What do we need to know about this particular group? I will tell you that I know Aaron Ramsey is involved.
He is. He is involved. I mean, for me, the big storyline is that Italy are finally back in a major tournament, having missed out on the 2018 World Cup, and they're not just back; they are looking strong. I mean, throughout qualifying, they won all 10 of their games, so they got maximum points, 30 out of a possible 30, and with a good core of young players matched with some nice experience. A lot of people are putting some money on Italy, I presume. So for me, that's the big story of this group, because obviously Switzerland and Turkey and Wales are not the giants on the international stage. But I mean, Wales had a good time last time out, as we mentioned before. They reached the semi-final where they eventually lost to the winners Portugal on an incredible run, which. Inspired by Gareth Bale and Aaron Ramsey. So maybe they feel like they've got some unfinished business. But yeah, for me, the big story is Italy, and they're back with a vengeance.
Do you see Ramsey coming off the season? He had an uneven season, and Gareth Bale a season where he didn't play for large stretches, but did play down the stretch. And, I would dare to say even contributed a little bit. Do you think they still have enough to carry Wales to be relevant in this group? Is there anyone on that squad that could help them make a splash?
I mean, they're obviously the 2 standout players. I know they both struggle with injury, and they're not what they were 5 years ago. Especially Gareth Bale. I mean, I know he had a bit of a purple patch towards the end of the season, but I don't see them as what they were back in 2016. I mean, they have David Brooks, who's a very good player. I mean, a lot of Premier League watchers will know him. He had a nice sort of breakthrough with Bournemouth before some injuries held him back, and obviously they were relegated, so he's kind of been out of sight, out of mind. They've got another big striker called Kiefer Moore, who's kind of like your typical big target man up front who scored a lot of goals last season in the Championship. So, I mean, they're a home nation, so I'll try and be nice, but I think it might be difficult, especially having changed their manager. I mean, everybody knows what's happened with Ryan Giggs. But, they have players to hurt people. Even Dan James from Man United, Ben Davies will be there from Spurs. So they have some Premier League experience, but I'd be surprised if they can go on another shock run like they did last time.
Yeah. Well, I guess if Italy is going to take this group and make a splash in the tournament, who are some of the players you would expect to star for them and be players that are going to, potentially be able to carry them in a tournament that, let's face it, is pretty top heavy with some really good teams in terms of elite talent. So who are the players for Italy that could get them into that group?
Mm-hmm. I mean, you see the strikers, Ciro Immobile, he's been banging in goals in Italy for about 4 seasons now. So, he's obviously one of the guys that you'll look to create some problems, and alongside him will likely be Federico Chiesa from Juve, who's had a really good season as well, and Lorenzo Insigne, a name that most will know from Napoli. That's a super talented front line, but for me, all their talent lies in midfield, and that's largely in the form of Nicolo Barella, who just was so good this season for Inter when they won the league. I mean, he's just the perfect midfielder for Antonio Conte. Box to box, loves the challenge, can score. Is like on the smaller side, but so tenacious, so energetic. And I think for me, he's going to be their key sort of man in the middle. But if you genuinely look across their squad, you'll find a lot of talent and experience. I mean, everybody knows that Italy thrive in defence, and they're going to have, Donnarumma in goal, who's left Milan now, so I don't know if that's going to be playing on his mind. But they'll have Bonucci, Chiellini, those sorts of guys there that have sort of been around for years now. So you can never rule them out. You can really never rule them out, because all it takes is a string of few good results in tournament football when you're in the semi-final or the final already. So if you're going to back them as dark horses, I would say that's a good shout. Yeah.
Well, we had Mohammed on our scouting pod, I want to say last summer, and he was talking up Locatelli as someone who would go on to be, a huge transfer of the future. And I'm curious if he had a season that lived up to that. And, I doubt he's going to be at Sassuolo very long. How do you feel about him?
Yeah, really good midfielder. I mean, that was some good scouting from Mohamed, because he was brilliant last year for Sassuolo. I mean, they played a very attacking style under Roberto De Zerbi, who's now leaving for Shakhtar Donetsk, I believe. But in terms of what you want in a sort of a number 6, he was in like the 97th percentile for attempted passes, 98th percentile for progressive passes. But he's also good at the defensive work, averaging just under 3 tackles a game, which is pretty absurd, especially for a team who are possession heavy. So, I mean, there's absolutely no way he will be at Sassuolo next season. And I know Manchester City have been linked, but for me, he's going to stay in Italy and he'll drop straight into that Juventus midfield. They sort of have the run of the market for upcoming Italian players, and I would be very surprised if he ends up anywhere else. But yeah, really good midfielder. And I think he and Barella in the middle will be a real force to be reckoned with.
Okay, well, you have told me offline, and now you will tell me on the podcast, presumably, that you consider Turkey to be a dark horse for the tournament. And I'm curious who the players are to keep an eye on, how they play, and whether they'll be an interesting watch to keep an eye on. I mean, one thing that I find, given that I don't have a specific rooting interest other than Arsenal players, and I guess I can kind of get behind England if I can just sort of hold my thumb over the part of the screen where Harry Kane runs around. But I'm always looking for a team that I can adopt as kind of a dark horse second favorite. So sell me on Turkey.
No, I mean, they are. Having done a bit of research and looked through all the squads, they could do some real damage. I think. I mean, if you just looking at the squad as a whole, it's quite young, and in some ways that's a good thing. In some ways that's the bad thing. But I mean, if you actually look at who's gone, they particularly defensively, they have people like Zeki Celik, who just won the league with Lille, a really good right back, solid right back.
Someone we're looking at potentially, right?
Yeah, there were some links with Arsenal, yeah. And I think it would be a really smart signing, but I'm unsure at the moment.
So we can rule that out. Okay. Just kidding. Just kidding.
And obviously they have Merih Demiral from Juventus, who's the typical, blood and thunder defender who will like smash into the back of anybody and do his hands. I didn't touch him, kind of like Socrates style, And obviously there's Kala Soyuncu from Leicester. But even going forward, they have a host of options. Hakan Çalhanoğlu from Milan, who's had a really good season. They have Yusuf Yazici from Lille, again, another league winner. I think he scored 14 goals and got 6 assists, which is really good considering he just came back off an ACL injury. And then, of course, Burak Yilmaz, 35 years old, and somehow winning the league for Lille in, unbelievable fashion.
That'll teach me to talk about age cliffs.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody expected him to be able to perform like this, and he sort of came not to criticism, but nobody was expecting anything special from him, and he's just been banging in the goals, and not just your general tap-ins. It's been like screamers from outside the box, free kicks, and just from out of nowhere, really. And having looked at sort of these guys, the rounded squad, the quality of the squad with all the young players, I think they could really do some damage. And I think Italy need to be careful here because they'll be gunning for the top of the group.
Interesting. Well, we know about Granit Xhaka, Arsenal player, plays for Switzerland, may not be an Arsenal player for the entirety of this tournament even, but we also know about Shaqiri. How about this? In a few sentences or less, let's finish off Group A. Who's someone you want us to know about for Switzerland that's maybe not a household name, and what we can expect from them?
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 names that spring to mind. There's Breel Mbolo from Borussia Mönchengladbach, he was kind of a highly sought after teenager, having come through at FC Basel, maybe not reached the levels that were first expected, but he's become a fairly standard Bundesliga player. So he's done a good job. So he'll be an interesting one up front. But for me, my player to watch is Remo Freuler. He plays for Atalanta, who are just great fun, top scorers in Serie A by some distance. They just play with such an attacking enthusiasm, and he's a real technical kind of box-to-box midfielder with a great touch and great technique. So I really enjoy watching him. And I think others will too if he starts. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's wrap up Group A with your predictions of how it'll finish.
Yes, I've gone Italy first, Turkey second, Switzerland third, and Wales fourth.
And so, Wales fourth.
Sorry to all the Wales fans out there. Yeah.
Well, look, I have a soft spot for Aaron Ramsey, and I'd love to see them get into the knockouts, but we'll have to live with your predictions for now and see how they turn out. Let's move on to the group that follows Group A, and if you have been following along at home, you will know that the next letter in the alphabet is Group B. Actually, the next letter in the alphabet is B. Group B would be the next group, and in it, you will find Belgium, Denmark, Finland, and Russia. This is a group that I'm just going to throw all of my vast football knowledge out on the table here, Phil, and say, Belgium, Belgium, Belgium, Belgium. Tell me why I should look past Belgium.
Well, why you should look past Belgium?
Yeah, that's a joke. I shouldn't, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, they're quite comfortably the favourites for this group. Everybody kind of likes to pick fun at Roberto Martinez, but he's done a great job with Belgium. They were number one in the rankings for a long time under him. I know those things are kind of bogus, but it's a nice title to have. And their squad, they're kind of getting towards the aging side. But I think
fair to say that this and the next World Cup will be the end of the golden generation run for this Belgium team. They've got 2 more chances to win it, really.
I would say so, yes. But what a generation it was. I mean, if you look through the names, they have a really excellent squad, and they should, honestly, if they don't win this group, then they've underperformed quite significantly. Well,
presumably De Bruyne will be okay to go despite suffering a fairly nasty injury in the Champions League final.
Yeah, I think there was talk that he might miss the first game, but I think he'll be back for the rest of the group stages and probably with a mask as well. So that adds some mystery to Kevin De Bruyne if you're into that stuff.
The masked Kevin De Bruyne. You'll never know who he is as he's charging through midfield, dropping dimes and scoring goals. We'll have to just guess. It's Romelu Lukaku up front for them. Anyone that you're interested to watch in that system that might be new to it, or is it pretty much a settled side that's just going to go out and stomp through this group?
No, they're kind of settled with their wing back formation. Romelu Lukaku has had an unbelievable season for Inter. 30 goals, 11 assists.
That's it? Okay.
Well, that's it, exactly. Why is he being touted with all the top clubs in Europe? Who knows? But yeah, he's just kind of elevated his game so much this year. He's just basically a one-man battering ram at times, with such speed and power. And, shock horror to everybody, he's actually improved his first touch a lot. I know that was the kind of the joke with him, but, watching him now, he's pretty much the complete centre forward. And I think he'll be challenging for the top scorer award pretty comfortably, especially if the likes of Eden Hazard, Torgan Hazard, Yannick Carrasco are feeding him with some good service. So for sure, I expect him to be at the top of the scoring charts.
Yeah, well, I think Belgium is obviously going to top this group, he says, knowing that in 3 weeks' time I will look completely stupid. But assuming they do, I think you have Denmark as the team that can push them. So what do we need to know about Denmark and why they might be the ones to take the second spot in the group?
No, I mean, another really interesting side, much like Turkey, a good young side who are maybe... they never really pulled up any trees. I mean, I know they won the tournament in 1992 in shock fashion, having not originally qualified for it. So, but they have some experience in Thomas Delaney from Borussia Dortmund and Simon Kjær from AC Milan. But what excites me is their attacking talent. They've got Mikkel Damsgaard, who's a super interesting, neat and tidy midfielder from Sampdoria. They've got obviously Højbjerg from Spurs as well, even though we're not supposed to like them. Martin Braithwaite, I don't know what he's doing at Barcelona really, but he's, proven himself in some situations. So yeah, I think they could, I don't think they'll challenge for the top of the group, but I think they should come in at a sensible second. And obviously they've got Christian Eriksen, who has finally come into some form after a really difficult start at Inter Milan. And I think he's always been and always will be their kind of go-to guy as long as he's playing for them. So expect him to be their kind of focal point, shall we say.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is one of those groups that, to someone like me that isn't as close an observer, obviously, I don't really know what to make of any of the teams behind Belgium, but it sounds like Denmark could be interesting to watch. I mean, out of Finland and Russia, I don't think we need to spend a lot of time in it. Russia, a team that, once upon a time was really exciting, and I certainly loved watching them when they had Andrei Arshavin. Long way from that now. Anything exciting about Russia that might make them interesting in this group?
I mean, they were great at the World Cup, honestly. But there's a couple of players like Alexander Golovin, who, had another good season with Monaco. He's basically going to be the guy who they sort of give the creative keys to, and for good reason. He's a really talented player. And as well, they called up a young player called Arsene Zakarian. I
like the first name.
Great first name. Yeah. He was a real shock inclusion at just 17 years old. I think he's along with Jude Bellingham and someone from Poland who escapes my mind as the sort of the youngest person to be called up. So, he's like kind of like another creative midfielder who can play wide, similar in that Alexander Golovin mold. So, I mean, Finland, the classic name is Teemu Pukki. I think he's scoring an average of 1 in 3 for Finland, which is, very decent. And he's just coming off a promotion season with Norwich. I think he scored 26 goals, which is, no mean feat. But yeah, I think those two are the weaker sides in the group. And I would be pretty surprised if Finland managed to do anything.
Final standings?
I've gone for Belgium, Denmark, Russia, and then Finland.
This has big, there are some games I'm not going to watch energy to it. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, I feel like the Russia-Finland games are probably not going to get my blood pumping. Is that fair?
No, that's fair. I mean, you can't, get excited about every game. It's going to be a lot of football for essentially a month now. But, I think that sometimes, and then when I'm in the Euro mood and there's games after games and you're like, why not? There might be some players that you like or surprise you. But yeah, I don't think those are the glamour fixtures, shall we say. So, no, I don't blame you too much for wanting to swerve those.
Yeah, I mean, it also kind of depends who's playing in those time slots and what they are. I mean, obviously, watching from the U.S. a little bit different. We do have some early morning games that I'm probably not going to be able to watch, even if I wanted to. So let's move on to the group that follows B. And thankfully, I have an outline, so I know that it is C. And Group C contains Austria, the Netherlands, North Macedonia, and Ukraine. If you said to me, Elliot, gun to your head, I need you to tell me something about Group C, I would tell you that Robin van Persie once played for the Netherlands. So now and Andrei Shevchenko once played for Ukraine. Now that you know everything I know about Group C, do you know anything else about Group C, hopefully?
Yes. Well, I have an interesting, few little facts for you. I mean,
what's the big storyline in this group?
I mean, for me, the big storyline is that the Netherlands are back.
Didn't they go through the group qualifying, like they won every game or something like that? I mean,
they did well in qualifying. They finished second in their group to Germany. They only lost one game from 8, so it's not terrible. But yeah, it's been a long time. It's been a long time since we saw the Netherlands in a major sort of a tournament, because they missed the last 2. So this is kind of like Italy, a similar situation to Italy, but it's been an even longer absence for them.
Isn't the fun thing with the Netherlands at tournaments that they always wind up hating each other and implode, or have I forgot? Am I getting that wrong?
No, I think that's more France, to be honest.
Okay. Mm-hmm. France. What's France? I don't know.
France, yes. They've had a few famous implosions in their day. I mean, the issue for me now with the Netherlands is that their squad is not what we remember. It's quite
Schneider, Ian Robin, Robin van Persie. I mean, that was a team that was really scary once upon a time.
That's it. We kind of look back with rose-tinted glasses. It's the same with Brazil. We remember Ronaldinho, Kaká, Ronaldo, all these guys, and they're kind of not at that level anymore. But no,
they've got bums like Neymar now.
Yeah, I know these guys. Yeah, 222 million. But yes, I mean, looking at them, they still have some talent, but I don't think they're going to be the Netherlands that people just instantly assume will kind of breeze the group and then be in the quarterfinals or the semifinals,
Yeah, I mean, Memphis Depay, obviously a player that gets some ridicule for what happened with him at United, but he's been excellent since leaving United. Is he the best player on that team? Is he the player that's going to lead them?
Yeah, undoubtedly. Really, really good player. And I don't think people sort of give him the credit that he deserves.
Is he still a one-trick pony? Am I right to remember that he would just cut in on his right, wouldn't use his left, and just wanted to shoot from outside the box, or is that a misremember?
Well, I mean, actually, he's sort of reimagined himself as a false 9.
Okay.
For Lyon now. He's not really a striker, so he has the technical quality to drop deep and link with others. But he's just super productive and just a really gifted player. He's quick, he's strong, he can score free kicks, he can shoot from range, but also his movement in behind is very intelligent. And I think for sure he's going to be the guy for them that's, asking for the spark, but they have some other players. I mean, there's Donyell Malen, who Arsenal fans will know. Unfortunately left the club a bit too early in my opinion. And, there's a lot of teams interested in him now after his impressive form with PSV. They have Quincy Promes, who was at Ajax and now he's at Spartak Moscow. They have Wout Weghorst. who's coming off a good season with Wolfsburg. So, I mean, they have players to cause some damage. And even in midfield, I know they were hit by the injury to Donny van de Beek. But they have Jorginho Wijnaldum, Martin de Roon. There's a really interesting midfielder who I'd actually be open to being our Xhaka replacement in Teun Koopmeiners. Even Matthijs de Ligt. There's a good core to the squad, but I just don't get any sort of wow factor from them in general.
Interesting.
With Frank de Boer there.
Yeah, I mean, I know that Gravenberch is one of those guys that everyone's going to be looking at because he's kind of a analytics hipster darling for transfers and stuff like that. So, I mean, are we going to see a lot of him?
I hope so. I hope the injury to Van der Beek actually sort of opens up a small place in the squad for him, because he's had a really good season with Ajax. Quite a big rangy player, but like really smooth on the ball, great for progressive carries. People just sort of bounce off him. But he's really technically gifted. He throws in some ball rolls and some nutmegs, and he can even arrive late into the box. And I think this tournament can kind of be his audition to say, hello, Europe, I'm here. Because I don't think he'll leave Ajax next season, but for sure in the next 2 seasons, I don't see him staying there for much longer. He's pretty much everything you want in a modern midfielder. And for sure, he's going to be a 50 million, 40 million pound player.
Exciting. So, I mean, you have it here that this goes Netherlands, Ukraine, Austria, North Macedonia. I might have thought that Austria would be your second with David Alaba and Sabitzer. Why Ukraine? So I've given away your prediction, by the way. You say here in the notes that they have a player who's like Lucas Podolski on steroids, and I want to hear about him. But the only thing I would say is, if he's on steroids, do you think UEFA will let him play?
Well, unfortunately not.
Okay.
No.
Figure speech, yeah. I'm guessing then.
But yeah, I mean, I said, that's pretty much the perfect way how to describe him. I mean,
and who is this? Just because I haven't actually said his name yet.
Yeah, I mean,
if you get a
chance to YouTube him, look up Ruslan Malinovsky.
Okay.
Who's also another player from Atalanta, like Freuler that we mentioned before. Man, his long range shooting is unbelievable. Like, genuinely. Almost every week, there was like people on my timeline going, "Oh my God, he's done it again!" He hits the ball so hard, and even if it doesn't like pick a corner, it's in Shaolin soccer when the goalie saves it and he like flies into the back of the net.
Yeah,
there were some goals like that, and you just think, Jesus Christ, this guy he's got a cannon, for a left foot. And I've actually put Ukraine second. And like you said, it might be surprising for a few people, but they actually finished first in their group in qualifying ahead of Portugal. So
wow, okay,
unbeaten, in 8 games, 6 wins, 2 draws, and they're managed by a famous Andriy Shevchenko. So there is a really interesting team with some good young players. Particularly, there's a few from Dynamo Kiev. And I think they haven't been such a strong nation in previous tournaments, but I would watch out for them because they can play. These guys can play, and particularly there's another left footer called Viktor Sigankov, who's kind of like a left-footed classic Arjen Robben, left-footed winger from the right. Really good player, so watch out for him as well.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I mean, I guess the one thing I would say, I mean, I always hate to say this because maybe I'm being patronizing or condescending to a team that's actually better than it looks. I don't know much about North Macedonia. My guess is that these are going to be viewed as sort of the minnows of the tournament, and not expecting much from them in this group, and potentially kind of being beat up on a little bit. But is that not the case? I mean, do they have something to offer?
I mean, of course, they made it. They made it to the tournament, which proves they have something to offer.
Yeah, I mean, last time we had a minnow like Iceland, we saw how that went, right? So sometimes they can really surprise, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. But I mean, for sure, they're going to be the minnows alongside Finland. But they have some decent players. They're more of the classic, unit, as opposed to having some outstanding individuals. I mean, they have Goran Pandev, who Italian football watchers will know, who spent time with Inter, and he was part of the treble-winning side, I believe, with Jose Mourinho. But he's 37 now, so maybe not at the peak of his powers. They have Elliot, who's with Napoli, a really sort of silky midfielder, number 8. Who's going to do hopefully a good job there. So, I mean, in qualifying, they finished 3rd. So they didn't have the most difficult group with kind of Poland, Slovenia, Israel, Latvia, and Austria. But they got 14 points, so it's not terrible. But for me, I think this might be a stretch to expect them to progress from the group.
Okay, fair enough. Well, you have the group standings. I mean, I think I sort of gave it away, but you want to tell me the final standings anyway for people who tend not to listen when I'm talking?
Yeah, it's I've gone for Netherlands first, Ukraine 2nd, Austria 3rd, and North Macedonia 4th. But I could easily be wrong about Austria. Like you said, they have Marcel Sabitzer, David Alaba, Konrad Laimer. And actually, there's a guy I want to highlight quickly called Sasha Kalajic, who plays for Stuttgart. I mean, this man should absolutely be nowhere near a football pitch, but he's scoring 16 goals as a 6'7" striker. So there you go. He's
the Peter Crouch of Austria.
The classic, the classic cliche. He's got a good touch for a big man. So watch out for him. He's difficult to miss, but yeah, look out for him. He's a good player.
All right, well, that'll be one to watch, certainly. We are halfway through the groups, and one of the things I think we always look out for during the tournament is the big club that craps the bed and the chaos that ensues, the implosion that you hear about, the players that hate each other, the infighting at the hotels, and of course, the manager who will be sacked. And that means this summer, some mighty European nation will be looking for a new manager, a new coach, and they will be hiring. And if you're hiring, there's no better place to post that coaching job than on Indeed. So we'll take a break, tell you about that, and come back after this. Okay, it's time to tell you about Indeed. If you need to hire right now, it's a perfect time. There's so much talent out there. Maybe you want to hire for a podcast host. Maybe you're a podcast that people love, but they don't like the host so much. Well, Indeed can help you find that, but please not that. Use it for something else. Indeed is the job site that makes hiring as easy as 1, 2, 3. Post, screen, and interview. All on Indeed. Get your quality shortlist of candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description faster. Only pay for the candidates that meet must-have qualifications, and schedule and complete video interviews in your Indeed dashboard. Indeed makes connecting with and hiring the right talent fast and easy. With tools like Indeed Instant Match, giving you quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed fit your job description immediately, and Indeed skill tests that on average reduces hiring time by 27%. You can choose from more than 130 skills tests, then add your must-have requirements so you only pay for the applications that meet them. According to Talent Nest, Indeed delivers 4 times more hires than all other job sites combined. If you're hiring, you need Indeed. Get started right now with a free $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Get a $75 credit at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Offer valid through June 30th. Terms and conditions apply. Go there now. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Okay, we're back. Hopefully, all the nations participating listened carefully during that period so that they will know exactly what service to use when they are hiring for a new manager. They can definitely get in touch with Indeed as referenced. But we'll get back into it, and we will pick up with the group that follows Group C. And it is, well, you need no introduction to Group D, my friends, because it contains, it says here, England. I don't know. Point is, I don't know, Phil. I guess it's coming home. Give me the big storyline, and please phrase it exclusively in discussions about England.
Well, I mean, the big story is that England and Scotland are playing each other again. This is no England or Scotland fans will need you to explain that this is a big rivalry. And it's, the first time they'll play each other in a major tournament since Euro 96, which is a long time. I was only 1 year old at the time, so I don't actually remember.
Yeah, I would refrain from making that point around me. Thanks very much, because I was not only 1 year old in that period of time. I may indeed have been a grown ass man at that period of time. So thanks. Actually, I was not. I mean, that's overstating it. I'm not as old as you might think. And I you know what? Let's move on as swiftly as possible.
Yeah, no mention of age anymore. And obviously there was the famous Gascoigne celebration, and not only celebration but hairstyle, which Phil Foden has decided to pay tribute to. So, you know, there's some history there, and also with Croatia, because they beat England in the World Cup semi-final in 2018. So lots of narrative, lots of hashtag narrative in this group. This
group feels like it's got some landmines that England can step on. I mean, I think England should go through and should go through top. I don't think it's a given, but I hate to admit it to some extent, because not many of them are Arsenal players, but there is just an absolute glut of talent for England. The issue is a lot of it very young players. I mean, obviously Harry Kane up front, very experienced, but Bellingham, Saka, Foden, Mount, Sancho, like these are very talented, very young players. Is the biggest challenge for Southgate to get his most talented players on the pitch while trying to balance some degree of experience with the youth, the really sensational youth that he has. I mean, Grealish obviously is a star, but not particularly experienced at the international level. Do you think he has to get that balance right, or don't overthink it, put all the talented young guys out there?
I mean, I would prefer the second option, because I feel like this attack would win games anyway. But for me, the issue with Southgate is that he's never really released the shackles. I always feel like they leave something on the pitch every time they play. But maybe
the warm-up games weren't exactly eye-catching. Let's just put it that way.
At all, yeah. And I feel like he's kind of slightly conservative as a coach, and that's not a bad thing. We just want to see attacking football because, like you said, some of the talent is outrageous, really.
I mean, England fans haven't really gotten to fully enjoy the Jadon Sancho experience, have they?
No, and it's strange because he's kind of out of sight, out of mind in Germany, but he's constantly producing for Borussia Dortmund. And
would you say that next to Kane, he's hands down? I mean, for me, he's hands down the best player. I don't think anyone's close.
I mean, I'd say he's definitely in the top three. Obviously, you have Mason Mount, who had an unbelievable season. Yeah. So he's going to be up there with a shout. But for me, the interesting story here is Raheem Sterling, who's absolutely tanked this year.
Yeah.
And he's lost his place not only for his club, but for his country as well. So there's definitely space for the likes of Phil Foden, Bukayo Saka to come in on that left-hand side and really sort of stake a claim. But yes, there are a lot of young players, but like you said, Harry Kane, experienced, Harry Maguire, if he's fit, experienced, Jordan Henderson, again, if he's fit, experienced. So that's a very experienced, potentially an experienced spine that they can sort of build around. And that will be the sort of the plus points for Southgate in England.
Who would you pick at right back, which is obviously a big storyline?
Well, I mean, he's going to play wing backs, I guess. And I would go Trippier, just Trippier. I think he suits the position well, and he had a really impressive season for Atletico Madrid as they won the league. I mean, my first choice would have always been Trent Alexander-Arnold, but obviously he's injured now, so he's not going to be there. But I think a lot of people don't rate Kieran Trippier because they don't watch him every week. But I like him a lot, and I think he will be a good option for the right.
Yeah. I mean, the interesting thing is there's some Arsenal vibes here, just in the sense of the aging center forward who has been an elite goal scorer, and then all of these young tyros buzzing around him, and you have to figure out who to pick. I mean, Sterling doesn't really count as young anymore, but between Sterling and Sancho and Saka and Foden and Mount, Bellingham, there's just so much young attacking talent that can play out wide or tuck inside a little bit. And I think you'd forgive Southgate for not knowing which ones to pick. I don't see how he can leave Foden, Mount, and Sancho out of the team. I mean, is that for you? Are those the names that have to at least get their chance along with Jack Grealish and Harry Kane to start?
I mean, there's going to be people left out regardless, because we haven't even mentioned Marcus Rashford yet.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Well, I think he's pretty clearly... Wouldn't he be on the outside looking in at this point?
I'm not sure. I think Southgate's always liked to use Rashford, particularly from the left, because he can kind of do the Heung-min Son role of attacking the space that Harry Kane vacates.
Interesting.
So, he's a nice stylistic fit. I mean, I don't think Saka's going to be a starter. I think, for me personally, I would drop Mount into the midfield, like deeper, and play Grealish for sure. And then it's just kind of leaving it for the other guys to battle it out, I guess. But it's not a bad problem to have. I mean, let's be honest, you'd want these guys there than not. So, and it's a long tournament, like you said, heavy legs. You never know when you're going to be needed. So, but for sure, this is one of the most exciting England teams for a long time.
It is really crazy. I mean, there's a lot of players that I'd be excited to watch. I think I could see this being a tournament where, I mean, assuming he stays fit and he starts, that England fans really get to wake up to how good Jadon Sancho is. I think he is potentially one of the best players in the world breaking through. I mean, am I overstating it? Have I gotten over my ski tips here on Jadon Sancho?
I agree. I mean, I'm quite lucky to be able to watch him, maybe not if every week, most weeks, because obviously I'm closer to the Bundesliga here in Berlin, and he's brilliant. He's a wonderful player, and I think he's unfortunately going to move for a lot of money to a team that we don't like this summer. So
yeah, I'm sort of worried about that too.
Finally, yeah.
I mean, yeah. Well, the less said about that, the better. But so, okay. I mean, I think it is all set up for England to be a fun team to watch, a young, attacking team, a team with a lot of talent. Of course, it didn't show up in the warm-up games. We'll have to hope that Southgate figures out how to tease that out of them, because if you can't get those players playing some silky and fun attacking football, something is definitely wrong. But, I mean, if there's a team that's going to challenge them for top spot, who would it be?
Yeah, for me, it's Croatia. And I think it's going to be very close between the two. It's obviously they were World Cup finalists, losing out to France eventually. It wasn't even close really, the final. But yeah, this Croatia, in terms of their population, to have this kind of a squad is ridiculous, particularly in midfield. To have Mateo Kovacic, Luka Modric, and Marcelo Brozovic as your midfield three is just like, what? Yeah. I mean, I know Luka Modric is getting on a bit now, but he's still different class. And obviously they have guys who have been around, who know the deal, in Ivan Perisic, Andrej Kramaric, and then they can sort of supplement that with some young talent. But I mean, they were good in qualifiers, finished top of their group, only losing once. So for sure, for me, Croatia are the guys to challenge England. And then there's a slight gap between the other two, unfortunately. Again, for Scottish fans, I'm not like dunking on all the other home nations. I just don't see them as strong as England.
Well, let's just say this. I feel that the most important thing in watching Scotland will be all of us rubbing whatever lucky charms we particularly care to rub on to make sure that Kieran Tierney gets through the tournament uninjured. Safe to say? Oh,
yeah, absolutely. And it's quite strange that all of Scotland's good players seem to be left backs. But
Robertson, Tierney. Yep. Mm-hmm. Okay, so then that just leaves the Czech Republic. Don't need to go big on them, but is there someone that you think is interesting to watch there?
Yeah, I mean, they have a couple of guys. Alex Kral, who's kind of like a defensive midfield centre-back hybrid, who's a bit of a bruiser with this curly David Luiz-esque hair. And I think West Ham were interested in him for some reason, because they've managed to acquire half of Czech Republic in their team with Souček and Soufal. So he's one to watch. But for me, their star is Adam Klocek, who's kind of reminiscent of a young Zlatan Ibrahimovic, big, broad, but very quick, technically strong. And he has this amazing Jamie Vardy quality of just smashing the ball so hard whenever he finds a yard. and he scored 17 goals for Sparta Prague last season, even with a 5-month absence with a broken metatarsal. So it's pretty impressive.
All right. Our first Is It Coming Home challenge. Give me the final standings of this group.
Okay, I've got England first, Croatia second, it's coming home, Scotland third, and Czech Republic fourth.
England, Croatia, Scotland, Czech. Okay. Well, that sets us up for Group E then. And in Group E, you have Poland, Slovakia, Spain, and Sweden. We will not get to see Zlatan Ibrahimovic out injured, but we will get to see Robert Lewandowski. So why don't you give me the big storyline on this first? But Robert Lewandowski, obviously the big name in this group, although Poland may not be the team to watch. So what's the big storyline for Group E?
I mean, unfortunately, it's not to remind everybody of what's been happening, but the big storyline for me is COVID-19.
Well, this is Euro 2020, so I guess that's fitting.
Yes. Spain and Sweden have been hit with some positive cases. I mean, Spain have already confirmed cases from Sergio Busquets and Diego Llorente. And actually, news has been emerging in the last 24 hours about Sweden. And Dejan Kulusevski has been a very naughty boy. And he's been partying. And what happened? Got positive from COVID. And now 6 of their players are apparently positive as well. So it's not a good situation for them. And Kulusevski is going to be on the naughty step for sure.
Yeah, that's no bueno. Yeah.
No, not good. Not good.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the story for me.
So Robert Lewandowski, still good at football?
Still very good at football. Yeah. Just the
41 goals?
41 goals, broken a 50-year-long standing record previously set by Gerd Müller. And it was quite funny, actually, because in the final game of the season, they were basically, on FIFA when you have a favorite player and you just pass the ball to him all the time. Mm-hmm. It was kind of like that. And, Müller scored, Serge Gnabry scored, Kingsley Coman scored, and it was just like, oh my God, he's not going to do it. He's not going to do it. And then finally, in injury time, he scored and broke the record. So, just a brilliant striker, and he's pretty much the talisman for Poland.
Can I ask you a silly question that most people will laugh at? But for people who don't watch a lot of the Bundesliga, when someone posts big numbers at a super club, there's sometimes a tendency to write it off as any good striker could post those numbers on that club in that league. Obviously, that's not the case, but how good is Robert Lewandowski? Because you don't hear him, or at least I don't feel like you hear him discussed with Mbappe and Haaland and Messi and Neymar and Ronaldo. And he should be. But how good is he really? Is he one of the, if not the best player in the world, and deserves the recognition as such?
Well, I mean, if the Ballon d'Or wasn't cancelled last year, I think he basically had 2 hands on the trophy. He's had an unbelievable year, 41 goals in 29 games. Can you just compute that for a second?
I mean, Messi can, but the rest of us can't.
Yeah, and 7 assists as well. And it's not like he's just doing it in the Bundesliga because he scored 5 goals in 6 games in the Champions League as well. So,
not bad, yeah.
He's just the perfect striker, strong, technically, so complete. Can score on left foot, right foot, with his head. Just so good, really. I mean, if it's what you said, people can kind of write his statistics off because they see the Bundesliga and he's playing for Bayern, but really this guy is a different level. And he's 32, which is not old, but he can still dominate any defender in the world, and I expect him to score a fair few goals in this tournament.
Setting that aside, does Poland have enough of a supporting cast for them to be relevant in this group?
I mean, it's always difficult because they have a few sort of cult guys that you love. I mean, a lot of people remember Jakub Blushikovsky, who used to play for Dortmund, and he's an amazing player alongside Lucas Piszczek on the right. but unfortunately Blushikovsky's not been called up this time. I mean, obviously they have Wojciech Szczesny, who we know, obviously, who's the top keeper, but they also have Łukasz Fabianski, who's there. They have Piotr Zielinski, who's at Napoli, Mateusz Klich from Leeds, Jakub Moder from Brighton. I mean, the squad's not amazing. They have obviously Lewandowski there, but Milik was there from Marseille and Piontek from Hertha. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, they had a strong qualifying round. They finished top in their group with 8 wins from 10. So, I mean, they're no mugs, but I just don't think they have enough to do serious, to cause serious damage.
I feel like the one thing you can say about international football, though, is it can sometimes be a little cagey and a little low scoring. And if that's the case and you have a guy who can always find a way to score a goal, you have a chance to be in every game you play. And that's certainly something that Poland will be able to say. Who are some of the other players to watch, though? I mean, let's talk Spain for a bit. As someone who really still thinks of Spain as the Xavi and Iniesta era, right, where they were really unrivaled. I mean, prior to that, they were one of the nations that routinely disappointed at international level, and I feel like they've kind of gone back to being a little less reliable. So where are they now in that trajectory?
No, I mean, Spain will always be a good side. It's like you said, maybe it's not the Fernando Torres, Cesc Fabregas, David Silva, Iniesta, Xavi side that pretty much dominated international football for about 8 years. But, they still have a lot of exciting talent. I mean, it's difficult now because they've drafted in a lot of new players because of COVID, because they're still waiting on some PCR tests and things like that. But I mean, in defence, for example, they've had Aymeric Laporte declare for them because France, for some reason, didn't want to use him, which is ridiculous for me. But there you go, it's their decision. So that's a nice boost for them. And obviously they've still got guys like Thiago, Marcos Llorente, who had an unbelievable season for Atletico Madrid. They've got Ferran Torres from Man City, Alvaro Morata, Dani Olmo from Leipzig. Like you said, it's not star-studded, but they'll still be one of the best teams in the competition. And they were unbeaten throughout qualifying. But I mean, the storyline is no Sergio Ramos, who couldn't recover from injury in time, but this is still a very impressive squad.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, obviously you never want to write off a team like Spain that has as much talent to choose from. One thing that I think we can make a mistake sometime about is you generalize about certain nations having a certain history in tournaments, but with every set of players, that can change. I mean, Spain proved that, as you said, they dominated European football, world football, for 8 years. So, it can always come together. Any other players to watch before we give your final rankings for this? We haven't really touched on Sweden or Slovakia, particularly with no Ibrahimovic. Do you want to touch on Alexander Isaac is being linked with Arsenal, of all things, for absolutely staggering amounts of money. So why don't you tell us a bit about him? That might be helpful.
No, I mean, I expect him to be the focal point for Sweden now with Ibrahimovic injured. A really good striker, good young striker. I mean, he scored 17 goals for Real Sociedad last season. He looks kind of gangly and, his legs are really long. He's quite thin in terms of body type, but he's grown into himself now. I mean, a couple of years ago, he looked kind of like Bambi on ice with these super long, skinny legs, and he didn't really feel he knew how to control his body, but he can do it now. And he scored, with a variety of goals with his head, with his left foot, with his right foot. So I think for sure he's one to keep an eye on. And I like him a lot, actually. And I don't know how true the rumours are, but if Arsenal are looking at him, then they're looking in the right place. And there's another player called Jordan Larson, who's the son of Henrik, obviously Celtic legend, played for Barcelona and Manchester United as well, who's kind of similar to Dejan Kulusevski in the sense that he's a left-footed winger from the right, cutting inside, nice eye for goal. So, there's a couple of players for Sweden who could do damage. I mean, Christopher Olsen's there, any Arsenal fans who remember Christopher Olsen. I think he left us 7 years ago now, but he was quite prominent in the youth league team with Hector Bellerin and Serge Gnabry. So he'll be there. And in terms of Slovakia, I mean, my standout player for them is Milan Skriniar, who again had an unbelievable season with Inter. Arguably the perfect right centre back for Antonio Conte. Strong, doesn't let anything past him. And I think he'll be their leader from the back.
I'm torn on this group because I feel like it could throw up some surprises just because I guess maybe Spain is more dominant than I'm giving them credit for. I know you don't have Poland qualifying from the group. It's hard for me to think that Lewandowski won't have a say in that, but do you want to give your final standings?
Yeah, I don't know. I've just got a funny feeling about Sweden. I've gone for Spain first, Sweden second, Poland third, and Slovakia fourth. But I mean, I could comfortably be wrong about that. Poland, as I said before, they finished really strong in qualifying. They finished top, only lost once. But Sweden only lost once as well, and they finished second in their group with Spain. So I'm backing them to do it again.
All right. Well, that means we finish with Group F, which could stand for group. Fuck, why are we in this group? Because it's hard. It is the group of death. I mean, I have no idea how you wind up with groups like this, or if it is even good for a tournament. You have the Euro winners from 5 years ago in Portugal, and two of the biggest footballing nations on the planet in France and Germany, plus Hungary, which I will learn about as you talk about them. Mm-hmm. But my goodness, I mean, this is not a group you want to be in, but I still think France are so talented that I don't know that they can be knocked out of this group. But if you told me Germany and Portugal were the ones to escape it, I'd believe you. I mean, let me just ask you this. Does this ruin a tournament for you to some extent, Phil? Or is this the kind of thing that makes a tournament more fun in that you're going to have a group where every game is life and death and you get some titans? I mean, if Germany-France was a final of a Euros, you'd be like, we got a great final. You're going to see them play in the groups. Do you prefer this, or does this annoy you?
No, I mean, I think it's good. If you're good enough, if you win your games, then you go through. It's as simple as that. So the onus is on the teams to win. They kind of, I'm not saying they guaranteed 3 points, but they will fancy 3 points in at least one of their games from Hungary, who shouldn't be underestimated, but it's just, kind of obvious that their quality won't be able to match the other three. But no, I'm really excited to watch this group, and it adds some excitement and some jeopardy to the group stages, because sometimes they can be a bit of a formality, but that's definitely not going to happen here, barring a big shock. So,
well, let's start with Germany, actually, because I always just assume Germany will get it together, be amazing, and be in a semifinal of a tournament, if not a final. This is going to really test that theory because they are in a sort of weird moment in their transition to a new generation. I mean, do you see Germany potentially really struggling? Who are the German players we need to look out for, and how much trouble are they in here?
I mean, I'm not sure I see them struggling. I don't know. I just watch them and I feel a bit underwhelmed.
How about just whelmed? You just feel whelmed?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a bit
They're cromulent.
Yeah, I mean, they have a couple of interesting new additions. Like Robin Gosens will probably play left back or left wing back, and he's got a real nose for goal. I mean, no surprise he plays for Atalanta. I mean, everybody's reaching double figures in that team. And obviously they have some unbelievable players in Joshua Kimmich, Leon Goretzka, Toni Kroos. I mean, in midfield, you can't knock their quality. And even up front, they have Serge Gnabry, Leroy Sané, Timo Werner, Kai Havertz, Thomas Muller. I mean, you're probably thinking, like, why are you not convinced by this? But
yeah, actually, now that you say it, I've got them winning the tournament.
I don't know. When I watch them, I don't feel a kind of spark from them. And look, as we mentioned, the talent, the names there, you can't deny. I mean, even İlkay Gündoğan has had one of his best seasons in recent memory. So, it's difficult, but I don't know. For me personally, I see them lacking something, but obviously now that means they're going to win the group. So
It is interesting how over my lifetime, Germany went from the boring 1-0 team that, was just like clockwork. They'd find a way to get a goal and you couldn't get at them, to being a team with lots of fun, precocious attacking talent that can be a dumpster fire at the back. Do you see that still being more or less where they're going to be? I
mean, they're still pretty solid, but with some really fun players up front as well. Like you said, I mean, in qualifying, they only conceded 7 goals and they scored 30. So it's not bad going.
Okay, so now you're starting to make me think that the way you have these final standings play out, which we'll announce in a moment, is nonsense. So given that you've just got me now really excited to watch Germany after not really remembering that they have all those exciting players, it's been a long season. And who knows, Timo Werner, obviously, he could turn up and look like the Timo Werner he was in the Bundesliga. And they'd be absolutely devastating to watch. So how on earth are Portugal going to get past them? Because you seem to like Portugal. Now, and to be fair, they do have a player I've heard of. It says here, Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah, he's been around for a while. Maybe not everyone will have heard of him, but
can he do it again?
That's what he does. He's the robot before Haaland. He's just, you look at their squad and you just think, what the hell is going on here? There's so much talent and experience in every position.
Who are some of the supporting players besides Ronaldo that you're really excited about for them?
I mean, they usually use a back four, and let me just spell this back four out. Joao Cancelo, right back. Pepe, who's somehow still playing incredibly well at 37 or 38. Jose Font's there as well. Ruben Diaz, who will ideally take a prominent role in this team now. And then Rafael Guerreiro. I mean, that is an insanely good back four / back five that you've got to choose from there. And then they've got a really exciting young player called Nuno Mendes as a sort of option at left back as well, who's this like flying fullback who's all action, crossing, tackling, really good. And I'm sure, someone's going to buy him for 40 million this summer. Cough, Man City, cough. And in midfield, they have like Bruno Fernandes, who, even if he's having the stinker of all stinkers, will score a goal or assist. Ruben Neves, Renato Sanchez.
Future Arsenal player Ruben Neves, and the one that we should be very excited about. What would be hilarious, actually, because I know a lot of people are mad on Ruben Neves, is if he's like player of the Euros and then we can't get him and then everyone complains that we couldn't get Ruben Neves done before the Euros. Yeah, go ahead.
Get it done, Arsenal. Yeah. Get it done.
Pull your finger out.
And, even up front, they had Andre Silva, who was one of the top scorers in the Bundesliga, Diogo Jota, Joao Felix, Pedro Gonçalves, who was basically the Bruno Fernandes replacement at Sporting, who scored 22 goals.
And like 15 assists or something like that.
Absolutely mad. And you just look at these guys and you think, all of these guys around Cristiano Ronaldo.
Is there a potential problem? Because when I've watched Portugal play, the one thing I feel like is everybody looks to get it to Ronaldo. Like, don't be mad at me, I'll pass you the ball. Is there some need for this team to evolve to the point where Ronaldo is just a piece of it and not the piece of it, or is it never going to be like that?
I agree. I think there's been that case in the past, but I don't know. I kind of feel like they've moved away from that now a bit, and he's actually got a lot better with it as well.
Interesting. Okay.
I think he's matured in his later years. And I know we said Germany only conceded 7 goals, but Portugal conceded 6. And they.
Seems good.
I don't know. I really think they are one of the favourites alongside France, who I'm sure we'll speak about. But I just think they're such a well balanced, rounded squad, and they've kind of been here before and done it. So I fancy them.
I love all these teams now. I don't want any of them to get knocked out. So obviously the team that's going out is France, because they don't have any oh no, wait, it says here they have lots and lots of talent. So you've just talked me into the idea that actually France could be in big trouble. But then you look at France's team, and I think if you took the players that weren't even going with France, they'd have a shot to get out of the group, or weren't going to start for France. The hardest thing here is just Deschamps getting out of his way, right? Because he likes to get in his way and doesn't love to always pick the best players. Yeah. But it is a good team that has arguably the best player in the world. So outside of Kylian Mbappe and the exceedingly tedious Giroud-Benzema debate, I mean, are France still the ones to watch the ones that will be tough to beat in this group, despite the stacked Portugal and Germany sides.
Yeah, for me, these guys are the favourites. Just really, what an incredible team. And actually, you mentioned Benzema before, but he was injured last night.
Oh yeah, that's right. But badly or not? I mean, he seemed like he was laughing he had a little knee thing.
He was crying when he first came off.
He was laughing when Giroud scored a brace, though.
Yeah, but he kind of gave a little thumbs up to the camera after the game. So I think he'll be all right.
Can I stop you for a second? Because I just got look. You are on a podcast where the host of the podcast is known for really one outrageous opinion, which relates to Olivier Giroud, as you know. But like, I get it. Giroud has been a big figure for France. Karim Benzema is a better player than Giroud, right? Like this, I get it. Yeah, Giroud has won the World Cup with France without scoring a goal, I should point out. But like, is it a case that Giroud just makes France work and I and other people need to come to terms with that? Or is it overthinking it? Benzema's the better player. If he's fit, he needs to start.
I mean, the reason Benzema was kept out in the cold was due to his relationship with Didier Deschamps. I mean, it was never about quality, but they've obviously put whatever they had behind them. You know, it's been 6 years since he last played, so it's been a long time. So maybe time has healed those particular wounds. I think what Deschamps likes about Giroud is that he's the foil. You know, you said he didn't score a goal in the World Cup, but he's kind of the link man, the focal point for Kylian Mbappe and Antoine Griezmann, Ousmane Dembele. You know, these guys to really do their damage. But people forget that Benzema can do this role just the same, if not better. You know, he's just so good, really. And if you watched him at all this year, he was just unbelievable for Real Madrid. Like his control, his touch, his ability to know where to go, when to go. You know, he's just an unbelievable footballer. And then obviously when you supplement those kind of guys with N'Golo Kanté, Paul Pogba, I mean, somehow Moussa Sissoko's made it into this team, but, you know, Deschamps kind of likes one guy who's just there to work. It's been Blaise Matuidi in the past, and now he's going to use Moussa Sissoko as this kind of guy. And even in defense, they've got Varane, Lucas Hernandez, Presnel Kimpembe, and they've actually called up Jules Koundé, who was really good for Sevilla last year. You know, quite unique in that he's a smaller centre back, but his aerial duels are like off the charts for someone so small. And he goes on these crazy runs from the back where you're thinking like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Get back. And then you're like, oh my God, he's in the penalty box. He scored one goal like that against Barcelona. And there's just talent coming out of their ears basically. So yeah, like you said, it will be either Deschamps getting something seriously wrong for this team not to at least get into the semi-final, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I really struggle. I mean, the three teams, Portugal, Germany, and France, are so loaded. I still think, France is the favorite, but you've really put some doubt in me. I mean, do you have it as France topping the group and Portugal second? Is that right? What's your order here?
Yeah, I've gone France, Portugal, Germany, Hungary. Poor Hungary, who have lost Dominic Szoboszlai through injury, and I just look at their squad now, and I've kind of got the little violin out because I think they're going to be having a tough time of it in this group. But I mean, there is the option of third place qualifying for the knockout stage. So maybe if because there's 4 third place teams that are going to progress. So there is still the chance for Germany to get through, even if they finish third, or whoever finishes third, for example. So, but that's just my opinion, my standing on how the group's going to go. So
I think, is it fair to say, whichever of those 3 teams doesn't get out of this group, had they gotten out of the group, could go on to win the tournament?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think all 3 of those teams could easily win the tournament.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so fun.
Yeah, that's it's tough, right? Because on the one hand, I agree with you. I think it's going to make for absolute must-see appointment viewing when that group is playing, and it's going to be great. Mm-hmm. And on the other hand, it is sad to think that those teams won't get to play one of those teams won't get to play a big knockout tie. And it also means that someone is going to get the misfortune of drawing a potential winner, will top their group and get the number 2 team in that group, which, really unfortunate. Feels kind of like an Arsenal getting to the knockout round of the Champions League, topping their group and getting like a Bayern finishing second in theirs or something. But
exactly.
So be it. Okay, well, let's do this. Let's leave it there with one final thing. And remember, before I get to that, who do you have winning it all?
I've gone for France.
France. You heard it here first. Some country called France is going to win Euro 2020 in 2021. It is the strangest timeline, my friends, but that is where we are. Who's going to be player of the tournament?
Player of the tournament. I think Mbappe is going to really turn up this summer. I've got a feeling he's just going to explode like he did in the World Cup.
Any misgivings about Norway not being there, not getting to see Haaland on this stage?
Yeah, it's a shame, especially when you look at some of the other teams who maybe did make it, but at the end of the day, it's their fault that they're not there. So
yeah, cheer up, Phil. We'll get to see him play in the Premier League for Chelsea next season. So cheer up. No problem there. Yeah. Yep. Super. All right, well, let's leave it there. So remember, starting on Friday, you're going to get a Euro 2020 daily. There'll be probably short 30-minute episodes recapping the day in a format that's sort of similar to what we do with our instant reaction on Patreon. So a headline, a stock rising, stock falling type thing, just a little variation from there. But really excited to do it. We'll keep you up with what's going on in the tournament. So whether you're watching every minute or just want to get like a little caught up, you'll have that chance to do it with us. And there will still be sort of regular, quote unquote, Arsenal Vision podcasts along the way. So I'm really excited for that. As you've heard from this episode, Phil knows everything, which is the perfect compliment for my foil. I am playing the role of the guy who knows nothing. I'm just playing that role because I think it balances us out really nicely. So, if you're about to tweet me and say like, you don't know anything, it's just a role I'm playing. I'm just putting on that role, and just a great actor. And that's a thing I'm doing. Definitely. Phil, I'm so excited for this. And I really look forward to doing the series with you. Yeah, no, it's going to be a really fun time, hopefully for football fans. And no, I'm really excited to be doing the show as well. So hopefully we can watch some good football and enjoy it. All right. That's Phil Costa. You can follow him on Twitter at _Phil Costa. Thank you, Phil. Cheers. Thank you. My name is Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter at Yankee Gunner. I'm going to have to come up with my outro for the Euro Daily. But for now, since those start Friday, I can say we love you. We'll talk to you after Arsenal's hand transfer window news.